Hi, my name is Maeve and today I'm presenting on Does the Media Contribute to Aggressive Behaviour? I will be referring to violent video games and Adam Lanzar. Adam Lanzar was a 20-year-old boy who was believed to have shot his mother, Nancy Lanzar, in the head at her home in Connecticut on December 14th, 2012, before driving to the nearby Sandy Hook Elementary School where he shot and killed 20 students between the ages of 5 and 10 and 6 adult workers. According to police reports, Lanzar then turned the gun on himself, fatally shooting himself in the head. It is believed that his motives came from violent video games and his obsession with other murders. But it could also have come from the biological makeup, due to there being no autopsy and the fact that he is dead. We will never know. The biological approach focuses on genetic, hormonal, and neurochemical explanations of behaviour. Nativists argue that aggression is innate and it comes from within us, and aggression is a response of the brain. According to the biological explanation, playing violent video games may change real-life aggression behaviour in an individual. One aspect of the biological approach claims that genetic variants determine aggression, specifically the MAOA gene. The MAOA gene is a gene that produces protein. This protein regulates the metabolism of serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter in the brain. If the MAOA gene is defective or becomes defective, it is thought to lead to a lower serotonin level. This can cause the brain to struggle to inhibit emotional responses, leading to increased aggressive and impulsive behaviour. This is supported by Brunner, 1993, who said studies of aggressive behaviour in animals and humans have implicated altered metabolism of serotonin. These observations suggest that genetic defects in the metabolism of these neurotransmitters may affect aggressive behaviour, but such mutations have not yet been reported. This led to further research and the discovery of the gene MAOA. This was reinforced by Casas al. in 1995, who said the gene deficiency of MAOA gene may determine violence. In this case, they disabled the MAOA gene in male mice, which resulted in the mice serotonin levels and lowering, and the MAOA gene and the mice became highly aggressive. But the female mice were not affected by the MAOA gene being disabled. When the gene was put back in the male mice came into a normal state, and the thesis just suggests that when the MAO gene is not present in male mice, there is a chance for the mice to become more aggressive. Although this research has been conducted on animals and not humans, we cannot determine that this would be the same outcome on humans as it did on mice. This is due to humans being more complex than mice. Scientists have long known that damage in some brain areas, most notably the prefrontal cortex, will result in violent behaviour. The biological approach focuses on genetic... no jokes. It is argued that aggression comes from within a person, and aggression is a response produced by the brain. Biological explanations assume that aggression is located within the individual's biological makeup rather than their environment. Neural influences may explain aggression because of the structure of our brain. One of the essential brain structures is the amygdala, which is the emotional center of the brain. The amygdala plays a huge role in how an animal responds to environmental challenges. Animal or human responds to environmental challenges. The amygdala in humans is an essential and accurate predictor of aggressive behaviour. The biological approach claims that individuals with a damaged amygdala can become more aggressive and have a personality change. Science Daily 2021 backs this up by saying the amygdala is an area that causes aggression. Stimulation of the amygdala results in augmented aggressive behaviour, while lesions of this area greatly reduce one's competitive drive and aggression. This was reinforced by Charles Whitman, who was found to have cancer through an autopsy by removing his skull and found a dried tumour in the amygdala. It was predicted to be the reason for his drastic mood changes, which caused him to murder someone. Anyway, In the 19th century, Charles Whitman was a Texas Marine who in 1966 killed his family and then shot 12 strangers before taking his own life. Whitman left a suicide note which said, "I don't really understand myself these days. I am supposed to be an average, reasonable and intelligent young man. However, lately I have been a victim of many unusual and irrational thoughts." When an autopsy was carried out in the shootings, Whitman was found to have a brain tumour the size of a pecan nut pressing on his amygdala. Whitman's body was taken to the morgue, his skull was put under the bone saw, and the medical examiner lifted the brain from its vault. He discovered Whitman's brain tumour, and it was concluded that the cancer on the amygdala would have had a role in the dramatic mood change in Whitman and why he pursued a murder. According to the behavioural explanation, playing violent video games might change real-life aggression behaviour in an individual because a person will learn that being aggressive is the okay thing to do. They have been exposed to violent things such as violent video games, and they may turn to aggression faster. The social learning theory claims that individuals have learned aggressive behaviour by being directly rewarded for aggressive behaviour. They see that people are being aggressive and get rewarded for that. According to Bandura's theory, people with an aggressive personality may be faster to turn to aggression when something is wrong. This is because they've seen people do something aggressive, like abuse the Bobo doll, and saw no consequences and thought that doing the same thing was fine. In 1961, Bandura experimented on how much of an impact watching others had on humans. Bandura studied children aged 3 to 5, 24 children, 12 boys and 12 girls, observed an adult male or female model behaving aggressively towards a toy called the Bobo doll. The adults attacked the Bobo doll. They used a hammer in some cases, and in others threw the doll in the air and shouted. Another 24 children, 12 boys and 12 girls, were exposed to a non-aggressive model who played calmly for 10 minutes. And then the third and final group of children, 24 children, 12 boys and 12 girls, were used as a controlled group and not exposed to any model. The Bobo doll experiment results were children who saw the aggressive model were more aggressive in their response than those in the non-aggressive or control groups. The aggressive model girls also showed a more physical aggressive responses if the adult was male, but more verbal aggressive reactions if the adult model was female. Boys were more likely to imitate same-sex models than girls. The evidence for girls imitating same-sex models is not very strong. Boys imitated more physically aggressive acts than girls. There was little difference in the verbal aggression between boys and girls. According to B.F. Skinner, playing violent video games may change real-life aggression behaviour in an individual because a person will learn that being aggressive gets you rewards, positive reinforcement. They will turn to aggression faster because they've learned that it's okay, and this can happen through violent video games as there is positive reinforcement from gaining points when doing something aggressive. Operant conditioning claims that individuals will react to a consequence. According to Skinner's theory, people with an aggressive personality may have learned this through positive reinforcement. Simple psychology claims B.F. Skinner showed how positive reinforcement worked by placing a hungry rat in his Skinner box. The box contained a lever on the side, and as the rat moved about the box, it would accidentally knock the lever. Immediately, it did. When the lever was knocked, a food pellet would drop into the container next to the lever immediately. The rats quickly learned to go straight to the lever after a few times of being put in the box. The consequence of receiving food if they pressed the lever ensured that they would repeat the action again and again. This shows positive reinforcement because the mice learned that by pressing the lever, food would come out. Although this has been proven to work on mice, it may not translate to humans in the same way, as humans should be more complex. This could relate to Adam Lanzar, as he may have positive reinforcement when violent video games or at the shooting range from having fun with his family, and when winning a violent video game and leveling up or getting more points. And this could have led him to thinking that it was normal and an okay thing to do to harm and kill people. How are the methods of the two approaches different to one another? The biological approach is the study of biology of behaviour. This means it focuses on the nervous system, hormones, and genetics. The biological approach looks at the relationship between the mind and the body and what it does to determine our behaviour. The biological process believes that behaviour is a consequence of our genetics and the makeup of our body. The biological approach is the approach that examines behaviours from the makeup of our body. I literally do. Some methods used in the biological approach are scans, like the PET or the PET scan, CT and MRI scans, and tests like blood and urine samples and tests. Some advantages of the biological approach method are that it means that we can clearly understand what is happening inside a person's body in terms of their genes and brain. This could help us conclude as to whether or not a person could turn aggressive due to genes like the MAOA gene or the way that their amygdala is behaving. The behavioural approach is a theory of learning that believes all behaviours are learned through the environment that the person is surrounded by through conditioning. Behaviourism is only studies by observation of stimulus response. Some methods used are observing people and observing mice. One advantage of using the behavioural approach is that it is easy to use because it is all observational. You do not need to intrude on anyone's body or not intrude hugely on someone's environment. Like, you can change it, but you're not going to be like a massive issue. An disadvantage to using the behavioural approach is that it may be harder to have enough evidence to know what is wrong and why someone is so aggressive, as well as there is often not enough evidence just to look at the behavioural approach. This means it may be harder to draw a conclusion without knowing what is going on inside the body, as well as analysing the interaction of the approaches. Like, it may be better to analyse both together. A good example of this is Adam Lanzar. We don't know a lot about his biological makeup due to there being no autopsy, but because he was so connected to violence when he was little, there definitely could have been something in his biology that could have given away that maybe his amygdala was affected or his MAOA gene was defected. But by using just the behavioural, we also wouldn't know, but that's what we've had to do, because we can't use the biological, and therefore we will never be able to find a true conclusion on Adam Lanzar because we can't use the interaction of both approaches because there's no evidence. The interactionist approach is an approach that takes into account both the biological and behavioural approaches to understand behaviours like aggression. It is a more holistic approach as it looks at the approaches as a whole instead of in segments. Because it is more holistic, it means that the interactionist approach is more general and mixes both the biological and behavioural together to get an informed answer. An example of this is Adam Lanzar. Adam Lanzar may have had genetic issues or something could have been wrong in the brain. Be wrong in his brain, which could have caused him to become aggressive. Although we will never know this as there was no autopsy, it definitely could have been the case. He may have also become aggressive because of the environment he was surrounded by. For example, Lanzar enjoyed learning about other murderers, and he also really liked going to the shooting range, and he knew that there was a gun in the house at all times. Both the biological and behavioural approaches are reductionists because they look at the approach's specifics instead of the whole thing. The biological approach is reductionist because it only focuses on simple physiological factors that influence human behaviour, such as the MAO gene and the amygdala. The biological approach reduces complex human behaviours to simple explanations. It ignores other factors like the environment someone is surrounded in and only draws a conclusion from the makeup of a human's body instead of looking at both approaches holistically. The behaviourist approach is also reductionist as it focuses on the simple environmental factors that influence human behaviour. The behavioural approach strictly believes that all humans' behaviour stems from the environment that a person is surrounded by and therefore emphasises the nature argument. It ignores all biological and cognitive factors that could also influence our behaviour. One of the advantages to using the interactionist approach is that it combines both approaches to draw a holistic conclusion. In Adam Lanzar's case, we would want to use an interactionist approach because we can use both what we know from the other approaches about him. Therefore, we would draw a better conclusion on what he did and why he did it. A disadvantage of the interactionist approach is that it is too broad, because we consider both internal and external factors. By considering both biological and behavioural factors, it could be too much to look at and too much to get a specific enough conclusion. In Adam Lanzar's case, when we look at all we know biologically and all we know behaviourally, it could be too much to look at when trying to understand what he did. The general regression model uses social learning and cognitive priming theory elements. It implies that we are a model that brings together social learning and cognitive primary theory elements and suggests that we will adapt to it if we live in a violent environment. The general aggression model claims that violent video games desensitize people to aggression, and if people constantly turn to violent video games, it teaches humans how to be aggressive and desensitizes us to aggressive behaviour. For example, because Adam Lanzar played many violent video games and was obsessed with mass murderers, he became desensitized to seeing aggression. He therefore may have not felt as bad, and maybe nothing at all when shooting and killing his mum and others. What could we do to reduce the likelihood of aggression in society? To reduce the likelihood of aggression in society, there are a few things we could do. First of all, there needs to be better security around purchasing and using violent video games. For example, we could have a way to swipe our IDs on Xboxes and PlayStations before we play the game. This way there is more control over who uses the game, and you can't play unless you're over the age limit. Another thing we could do is test humans' genes for the MAO gene deficiency. Although this would give us an idea on if a person could be a danger to society, we would not be able to confirm that, and it could lead to ethical issues as to what do we do with that person. We know that they may be an issue, but we don't know that for certain, and so what should we be doing with that person? And that's it. Thank you.